Welcome, my friends. Today, we will discuss the 4 levels of measurement data can be categorized into. Knowing a variable's level of measurement helps us decide the best way to analyze it. There are 4 levels of measurement, and each builds upon the previous level. At the bottom level, we have the nominal scale, which applies to data such as names, labels, or categories that have no inherent order. Take the names of my cats, Mocha, Snickers, and Daisy. If I asked you to put the names of my cats in order, you'd probably scratch your head and ask, order them how? By cuteness? By age? There is no inherent ordering to the names of my cats. They're just names, which is why they are measured at the nominal scale. Next, we have the ordinal scale, which is exactly the same as the nominal scale, except now you can order the data from smallest to largest, but the differences between the data don't have any significance. If I asked you how much you loved statistics and gave you the options, it's awful, it's okay, it's good, or it's spectacular, of course, let's be real, you would all say it's spectacular without a question. But if those were your options, now we have labels that have an inherent order. But notice the differences between the options are a bit subjective here. How much better is it's spectacular compared to it's good? That's up to each person to decide, so we can't measure the differences between the responses, but we can order the data now, which is why this example is on the ordinal scale. The next level is the interval scale, which can also be ordered, just like ordinal data, except, you guessed it, now the differences between the data are meaningful. Now we are talking about numerical data, except 0 doesn't represent a true 0 in interval data. A good example of interval data is the year someone was born. If I was born in 2007 and my cat was born in 2010, we can say that my cat was born 3 years after me. Note that 0 doesn't really mean 0 here. Year 0 does not represent the beginning of time. No, we'd be about 15 billion years off. So the calendar year of 0 is not really an absolute 0. Calendar year is on the interval scale because the differences between years are meaningful and there is no absolute 0. The final level of measurement is ratio. Ratio data is just interval data, but now there is an absolute 0, which makes ratios of data meaningful. For example, my students' test scores on their first exam. A student who scored a 50% really did get half as many points as someone who got a 100%, because a test score of 0 really does mean 0. The ratio scale is the highest level of measurement. Test scores can be ordered, we can take differences, and we can even divide one test score by another to find a meaningful ratio. Let's look at some more examples. Give these 6 examples of variables a shot. Should each variable be measured at the nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio level? Pause the video and think them through, and I'll be right back with the answers and explanations. Alrighty, I'm back. Let's go through these one at a time. The number of minutes to finish an exam is an example of ratio data. We can order and take the difference of exam times, and there's also an absolute 0. Although if you're turning your exam in after 0 minutes, I'm not all that optimistic about your score. The rank in class based on overall GPA, such as first, second, third, etc., is an example of ordinal data. But Luke, those are numbers. Doesn't that mean it has to be interval or ratio? Ah, my friend, you are but a statistics sapling, young and eager with much to learn. Ordinal data can be numerical, but it just doesn't happen all that often. If the variable is the rank of GPA and not the GPA itself, the difference between the data values is meaningless. How much higher is the rank 1 GPA than the rank 2 GPA? We can't know just by the ranks. GPA rank only tells us order, not meaningful differences, which is why the answer is just ordinal. Major in college is nominal. Although it's tempting to say we can order majors and say that statistics is clearly the best, I mean, come on. There really is no inherent order to college major. They are just names or categories. Age is ratio data because ages can be put in order, the difference between ages are meaningful, and there is an absolute 0. At age equals 0, you were born. Temperature in degrees Fahrenheit is interval. Temperatures can be ordered and the differences make sense, but 0 degrees Fahrenheit is not the absence of temperature. We can go into negative degrees. Temperature is always interval unless it's measured in Kelvin. Kelvin? Wait, what? For those of you not up on your temperature scales, Kelvin is a measure of temperature which actually does have an absolute 0. 0 Kelvin is the lowest temperature possible, which I've heard is pretty cold. The existence of an absolute zero makes temperature measured on the Kelvin scale ratio data. Level of satisfaction for a product as unsatisfied, neutral, or satisfied is at the ordinal level of measurement, as the responses can be ordered from worst to best, but the differences between the options are subjective and therefore not meaningful. Alright, my friends, we have finished our brief but hopefully informative discussion on levels of measurement. We will be exploring many more fun and exciting statistical topics that you won't want to miss, so make sure to subscribe for more.